Thank you so much for being here this evening. It's a very special event here at the National Security College. Before we begin, I'll acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we're meeting this evening and pay respects to the elders of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, past, present and emerging. Thank you for joining us at the National Security College here at the Australian National University. I'm Rory Medcalf, the head of the college. A special privilege to welcome Kerri Hartland, who you'll be meeting very, very soon. Of course, the Director-General of the Australian Secret Intelligence Service. And this is the first time that ASIS has conducted, if you like, a conversation with university students specifically about careers and about the mission of ASIS in that regard. It's not the first time we've hosted an ASIS DG at the college, and it's been a privilege in previous years to host Paul Simon, and in an earlier time for another organisation, I also valued a public conversation with Nick Warner. But this is a particularly special conversation, and I'm really grateful to the Director-General for entrusting the National Security College with it. Just a couple of ground rules before we get to the proceedings. The event is on the public record. However, we ask that you don't take photographs of your own here today. We will have a little bit of official photography, but that will just be focused on our guests, on the speaker, but not on the event more generally. There is going to be opportunity for you to ask questions, and I know that a highlight is going to be a networking event afterwards. So please do stick around for the end of the formal proceedings so that we can enjoy a conversation outside. But if you do have questions, please start sharpening them now, keeping them short and sweet, and we'll moderate as many of those as we can. A little bit of context. The National Security College, of course, is here to build and generate capability for Australia, as well as to encourage an informed national security debate. We've been doing this for 14 years now. ASIS is one of the 19 agencies of the Australian Commonwealth that support and sponsor the work of the college, part of that national security community. But of course, the service is also part of the national intelligence community, and an increasing amount of our work in recent years has really been about helping the agencies in the NIC to prepare for the challenges of the 21st century. Those challenges are pretty obvious. I suspect one of the reasons that we're all here today is not only to look at the career and employment prospects, but also to look at ways that we can make a contribution to Australia's national interest in challenging times, to help Australia protect its interests, its values, its identity in a world and in an Indo-Pacific region of challenge and change. And the role of the college in that space is very much to help build the capability Australia needs to really navigate those challenges. There's been a lot of change in the intelligence community over the years, and not only in Australia but internationally. We'll hear a little bit about that, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to have a very frank conversation that really, I think, takes us to the boundaries of what can be shared in the public domain. I'm very grateful again to you, because not only students from ANU but also students from the University of Canberra for showing interest, making time, making the effort to be here, and we really hope the occasion today is of great value to you. So our speaker doesn't need detailed introduction. I think you may well have seen her bio in signing up for the event today. But just a couple of thoughts about Kerri Hartland and why it's really valuable to be welcoming her here today. So Kerri, if I can call you by first name, has worked in a range of very senior positions, leadership positions, across the Australian government over the years, including at the level of Departmental Secretary with Employment and Workplace Relations, but also roles in Prime Minister and Cabinet, in ASIO, Finance, Industry, Resources and Energy, Human Services and Immigration. Now, a reminder that the security and policy landscape is really so integrated these days that it's very hard to talk about security or intelligence in isolation. Kerri's also worked in the private sector and in particular, I think in recent years before coming back to take up the invitation to lead ASIS, working with the Business Council of Australia and in consulting and advisory roles. I was also delighted that at one point Kerri was a member of the Futures Council of the National Security College, and I hope haven't completely forgotten about us. In that regard, she's also been the chair of the National Youth Science Forum and on the board of the Canberra Hospital Foundation. But intriguingly as well, I think began your career actually as a journalist, which is something I can relate to, and I think there's an interesting trajectory there in different careers that really look at information, looking at getting to the reality of ground truth. And we do welcome several friends from the media here this evening as well. I'd also note that we're joined by the two declared Deputy Director-Generals of ASIS as well, Kath Byrne and Ewan McMillan, and I'm very grateful for their presence here today. But you haven't come here to hear me, so it's a pleasure now to invite Kerri Hartland to the podium, after which we'll take some questions and answers. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Rory, for that really kind introduction. And I did want to also thank the team here at the National Security College for the invitation today. On behalf of the Australian Secret Intelligence Service and all of my officers, overseas and here in Australia, it's really wonderful to have this opportunity to speak to you today. Can I get a show of hands from you if before you were issued with the invitation that you knew about ASIS? Show of hands? Okay, pretty good show of hands. Sometimes people mix us up with ASICS, ACOS and AVIS. So if any of you are here today to learn about car rentals, then maybe you don't need to be here today. So ASIS might not be a household name, but we're taking really gradual and considered steps to be more open about our secret mission. So why the secrecy over the years? ASIS has always kept a low profile all the way back to when we were first established in 1952. Our job is to collect foreign secrets using highly covert methods, and we don't want to be found out. It's illegal for someone to say, apart from the two deputies and myself, that we work in ASIS, and it's illegal for someone to tell another person of a staff member that works in ASIS. I am pleased, as Rory said, to be here tonight with my two Deputy Director-Generals, so Kath Byrne, who looks after our corporate capabilities and transformation area, and Ewan McMillan, who is newly appointed into the role of Deputy Director-General of Operations. So that's why, it's such an honour to come here and speak to you, because the three of us are the only people that can speak publicly on behalf of the organisation. So the secrecy about who we are, what we do and who we work with is absolutely essential. But as I said, we also want to be more open so that Australians know about what we're doing to help protect them. So tonight I want to pull back that curtain and talk about, first of all, the mythology about ASIS's work. I want to talk also on two other points. I want to talk about the technology and the impact that's having on the organisation, and a bit about the psychology as well. So on mythology, the spy business is full of myths, and I want to take some time tonight to really bust those myths open. A big one is that image of rogue intelligence officers that are on covert missions overseas. And while I do have intelligence officers that are out there on overseas missions right now, they don't act like James Bond. So I want to talk about the other important members of the team as well. There are many elements to intelligence operations that go to actually form that the skill sets we need to be able to fit together to solve the puzzles that we need to solve. On technology, critical to everything we do, as I think you would all as students understand, and ASIS is making unprecedented investments into technology to stay ahead of the rapid trends that we're witnessing. And finally, I'll touch on psychology, because our business is about understanding the complexities of how humans work. It's at the centre of our intelligence operations. It's that human relationships that drives our business and what I personally love about working in the organisation. So first, to be able to talk about some of those myths, I wanted to start with, what is ASIS? So ASIS is Australia's foreign human intelligence collection agency. To give you a comparison to perhaps two other better known organisations and services, so there is the UK Secret Intelligence Service that you might know better as SIS or MI6, and the US's CIA. So better known than us, and also two of our closest partners. We sit within the Australian Government's Foreign Affairs portfolio, and just like our colleagues in DFAT, in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, I report to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. This is a really powerful whole of portfolio approach, with ASIS and DFAT working side by side to give Australia an advantage abroad. While DFAT and other agencies in the Commonwealth work to protect and advance Australia's interests in the open, ASIS conducts its intelligence mission out of the spotlight. It's part of a strategic whole of government and whole of nation approach to advance Australia's interests, because we all have our own unique interests and strengths to help achieve Australia's foreign policy outcomes. And that is about delivering a more secure and prosperous Australia. ASIS, as you might know, and Rory has referred briefly to this, is one of 10 Commonwealth agencies in Australia's national intelligence community, so that make up what's called the NIC. As a community, it incorporates law enforcement, defence, security and intelligence. And we protect and enhance Australia's prosperity and sovereignty. But we're all closely joined up, and it's that collaboration, I'd say, that sets Australia apart from others. So what's unique about us? As I said, our business is primarily about collecting secrets overseas. We do this by meeting and then covertly recruiting trusted partners. These partners are our sources or agents. Our sources give our officers secret information which they have collected from people and places around them. Our officers, ASIS staff, meet our sources overseas using highly secretive methods and tools to make sure that it's done safely. Their secrets give Australia an advantage and help disrupt threats. In our world, we call that secret information that our sources provide intelligence. So what's intelligence? Intelligence can be urgent insights and warnings. It can be highly specialised data or other protected information. But it's information that if we weren't getting it, would otherwise not be available to Australian decision makers. And again, Australian policy has benefited by ASIS's intelligence, often just at the nick of time. Human intelligence is often referred to as HUMINT, definitely not to be mistaken by office gossip, which we call RUMINT. For ASIS, if something is meant to be kept secret, can help protect Australia and can be passed human to human, then it's got HUMINT written all over it. And we're Australia's experts at getting hold of it, and we've been doing this for 72 years. Another myth that I want to bust, and I'm asked this at almost every discussion I have, is the idea that we use coercion or intimidation to recruit our sources. That's just not correct. Our sources work with us willingly for a range of reasons, but always because they trust us. Because of that special relationship that we have, there is the strongest commitment from us to always protect them. This speaks to a really strong ethical framework that underpins our work and everything that we do. Our officers critically consider ethical considerations, and I'm proud that we have an in-house ethics advisor that our officers can seek guidance from whenever they need. Now, while I'm busting some myths, who'll admit that most of what they know about espionage comes from James Bond movies? Any James Bond fans? A few. What about Jason Bourne? Jason Bourne fans? Oh, good. What about Jackson Lamb, my personal favourite?
Yeah, I was going to volunteer slow horses.
Jackson Lamb. Yeah. I don't know about his hygiene, but you know. One big generator of myths is, in our world, is obviously that spy fiction. Now, I'm 18 months into the job. I haven't spotted a single tuxedo. No one's offered me a martini, and I'm not going to fork out the bill for an Aston Martin insurance premium. So in saying that, though, actually justice isn't done to much of what we do by this fiction. People often ask me, why do your officers choose this type of work in collecting secrets? So I'm going to quote from one of my officers who I spoke to about this recently. They'd recently returned from overseas on the front line, and what they said is this: it's the creative part of the job, planning operations and quickly solving problems on the fly in the middle of a major city or in a small town somewhere overseas. There's also something about getting hold of secret intelligence. It makes the heart beat faster. And knowing in that much bigger picture how this intelligence can help protect Australia's security and prosperity, and maybe even stop attacks from happening. They're patriots, truly, and they care so deeply about Australia. At the end of the day, they know they're making a difference and helping the nation. And it's this ability to make a difference in such a unique way that is the most rewarding part about the job. ASIS officers have a really strong moral compass. They want to do the right thing by Australia and by their sources. But above all, it's the people factor. Forming those genuine relationships with people, getting to deeply understand them, that's the most satisfying part of the job. So what do our officers, our intelligence officers, actually do overseas, and how do we make sure that everything goes to plan? So picture this. Overseas right now, perhaps down the main road of a bustling cosmopolitan city, one of our highly trained intelligence officers is on their way to meet someone for a secret and pre-arranged meeting. The city is not this officer's home. Australia is. Yet they know it like the back of their hand. It is home, though, for the person the officer is about to meet, their human source. Let's call him Sam. Sam grew up in this city. It's where his closest friends live. It's where his kids go to school. It always has been and always will be his home. But tonight, Sam's home feels a little different than usual. That's because he'll soon be sitting down in a safe place with our officer who is about to arrive right on cue. Sam trusts our officer implicitly, and our officer trusts him. Tonight, Sam will pass secrets to that officer, secrets that will help protect not only Australia, but potentially Sam's own country, the region, and the world. Now, these might sound a bit like lofty goals, but believe me, meetings like these can have a direct impact on some of the biggest decisions we face. I'll come back to the story again soon, but it does show how we are out there collecting that intelligence every day and night around the world. So what about the secrets? What do we do with them? And how are they used? After our officer quietly and carefully and securely sends these secrets back to Canberra, they are turned into secret intelligence reports. These reports are things that are delivered to our decision makers across government, helping them to make some of those most important decisions on Australia's economy, about defence, about national security. Our secret intelligence also feeds into broader assessments about significant overseas events and emerging developments, drawing on a whole range of intelligence feeds right throughout the community. In this context, I just wanted to also briefly touch on the geostrategic backdrop to this for Australia. As students, I know that you'll understand that globally and especially across the Indo-Pacific region in which we live, we're experiencing some of the most challenging circumstances in decades. This includes conventional and non-conventional military build-up of a scale not seen since World War II. And it's only being compounded by rising tensions and reduced warning times. Meanwhile, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the current Middle East crisis, and the ongoing aftermath of the COVID pandemic demonstrates how a nation can be increasingly vulnerable to shocks. Against this backdrop, Australia will continue to work with partners to deter threats and prevent conflict and shape a region where everyone can determine their own future and aspirations. It's within this context and within the wider community, the intelligence community, that ASIS is an integral player in this whole of nation team. The intelligence that's being generated in these secret meetings, like the one I mentioned with Sam that I spoke about earlier, is just one example of how ASIS contributes to this team effort around the clock. I expect you would have a number of questions about our sources, how we find them, how do we know they have access to the secret information that we need, why would they want to work with us, what goes into setting up a meeting, ensuring it's safe, and how do we ensure that we're passing back those secrets without being discovered. These are the types of complex problems that ASIS officers have to consider every day. The answer to those questions lies within our tradecraft. Tradecraft is the thing that we protect the most. It underpins everything we do, but most of all, it keeps our officers, their sources, and their families safe. Protecting our tradecraft is a solemn promise that we will not break. Now, the complexity to our operations goes to another myth. Human intelligence is not just about officers recruiting and meeting sources overseas. It's much more nuanced than that. To succeed, we need a team of smart and creative people overseas and back here in Australia. Each intelligence puzzle I referred to earlier takes a whole team to solve. As Rory mentioned, before I entered government and well before I joined the intelligence community, I started life as a journalist. I loved that because I was really interested in the world. I was inquisitive. I loved writing. So in hindsight, it's a really good fit for the intelligence community. But growing up in Toowoomba, in rural Queensland, I hadn't heard of ASIS. And that's really common across our officers. And their career pathway before joining us is often that they are in a similar situation, that they hadn't known of ASIS. We tend to look back and realise what a good fit that we are and how much of our previous studies and life experiences make for a successful intelligence career. So if you can imagine how many different skill sets do go into making our secret meeting happen. Finding the source, recruiting them, then getting those secrets back without detection. In this room right now, I know there'll be many people that have got language skills, They will have technical expertise, understanding code or multiple IT languages, like to make use of big data sets. So if you think about that secret meeting with Sam that I spoke of, the planning and what the officer needs out on the streets, all of those skills that I've just talked about and many, many more are only the tip of the iceberg of what we need. There are other critical teams across ASIS, obviously, that keep our organisational engine running. Think finance, legal, communication, recruitment, human resources, project management, to name but a few. So, to my second point, ASIS is currently transforming, and one of the drivers is technology. So, yeah, we are a human intelligence organisation, but what is less understood is that our wins are often hinge on mastering technology. This piece of kit was used to de-encrypt Morse code. What we use now, I can't show you, but is very, very much smaller than this. New technologies are there and helping us to identify potential sources and to do this faster and more precisely. Tech puts us right next to the people with the right accesses at the right time, at the right place that we need. And often by sifting through haystacks of data that we can find that elusive needle. Tech also helps our officers to be secure, and it helps them communicate in those more risky environments in which we work. So think back to that meeting I talked about with Sam. Once our officer got the secrets from Sam, there was a team of technical officers standing by whose role in this operation had only just begun. Over the next few hours, that team will securely send these secrets back to Canberra, away from prying eyes, and without leaving any digital trace behind. It should be as if the meeting had never happened. Technology for us, though, can be that double-edged sword. And we're seeing this play out right across our overseas environments. My officers have to be really careful about their digital footprints, especially where the technical surveillance of citizens is only getting more stringent. This includes, new artificial intelligence and machine learning tools that have the potential to put new risks in front of our officers. Don't get me wrong, our officers are extremely good at what they do. That doesn't mean, though, we're not under intense pressure and scrutiny by other overseas services and non-state actors who have their own cutting-edge tools. So it's for these reasons that we're boosting our formidable technical skills and bringing on board more and more technical experts and problem solvers to be able to stay ahead of that technical curve. It's a serious challenge for my people, but one that they rise to, and they're constantly coming up with really innovative and out-of-the-box solutions to solve problems. So on to my last point, psychology. I sometimes say that in light of what I've just said about technology and given all the technical transformation that's out there and what technology can now reveal, isn't good old human intelligence a thing of the past? Can't we just create an ASIS GPT and call it a day? Frankly, no. That sort of hypothetical robot simply won't cut it. It could never replace what humans can do innately. I'm sure, like me, you've all written an email or a text message where you haven't put the right emphasis or put the wrong emoji, which apparently as a mum I always do after it, and it can be read in the wrong way. So if someone wants to truly understand what human intentions are, what they're really thinking, what really makes us individually tick, then you have to gain that trust and you have to talk person to person. I think, for me, this has never been truer than in this age of misinformation and disinformation. to get the true actions and intentions of people and groups overseas, it still takes that human sitting across from another human. I just can't see that changing. For all of the automation that AI and the tools now offer, I think there'll be never a better analyst of those intentions and sentiments than highly trained humans who can read between the lines and understand what someone's actually saying. So, and this really is the critical skill set that our officers are trained to do. The last thing I'd say about the human element to intelligence work is that investment in people as a capability is absolutely essential. We invest in our people's careers and their well-being, and I've set really high expectations of our leadership team to be people-focused in everything they do. It's not lost on me that I'm the first female Director-General of ASIS, and it's 72 years, only taken us 72 years. Boosting our inclusion and diversity is an important focus for me, and for good reason. We really need to be reflecting the Australian people that we work to protect. We also know that we can't afford to be doing things the way that they've always been done, because that's the way it's always been done. I need people with fresh ideas and solutions, and diversity ultimately gives that to us. It helps us to deliver greater intelligence outcomes and success across our overseas operation environment. So it goes to sort of the final myth I wanted to bust here tonight. The last thing I need is for us to look like a whole lot of James Bonds. Our people succeed best when they blend in. So no matter how you might identify or your background, your diversity will be of value to us. So before I end my remarks, let me tell you what happened to our officer, because it really goes to the essence of who we are. So our intelligence officer went to the meeting as planned, met Sam, collected that secret intelligence, and with the help of a technical team, sent it back to headquarters in Canberra, all without being noticed. From there, they took off, landed in Australia, jumped into a taxi. Except home isn't their destination, because they've still got an important mission to complete. The taxi pulls up at a primary school and the officer steps out. The officer's name is Sophie, and she's at the school because her 8-year-old son is about to step on the stage for his first school play. The other parents are walking in and they ask Sophie, how was your business trip? And she said, interesting, but, nothing out of the ordinary. Obviously, we know there was nothing ordinary about it. On stage, Sophie looks out and Sophie's son looks out, sees his mum on the stage in the crowd. If only he knew that his mum is an ASIS intelligence officer and she's collected secret information that has helped keep Australia safe. Maybe there's another parent in the crowd who also has a child on the stage, and guess what? They're an ASIS staff member, and just maybe they were helping Sophie behind the scenes here in Canberra to support her mission. Who knows? That's the special secret that they have between them. Thank you very much.